From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
With me now is Dr. Patrice Caldwell. She is the Chancellor of Eastern New Mexico University's system here on the east side of the state and President of Eastern New Mexico University right here in Portales. And I want to start by saying that I'm a big fan of the Monday Memo, and I notice as I read it that we are doing well with the COVID numbers.
We are, Don, and I'm so glad you mentioned the Monday Memo, a legacy that we brought back in this time when communication is so important. The numbers on campus and in our university community have steadily come down since Christmas, and we're really looking to move into that yellow code very soon, which will be 5% positivity or lower. And we're just a little over 8 the last time the numbers were released, so we are definitely going in the right direction, which is a great sign.
I keep track of that every day. What are some of the things that we do here at Eastern New Mexico University that help us get that number moving down?
Absolutely. Well, I think our greatest weapon is the surveillance testing that we're doing and the health monitoring that we're doing. So we're doing surveillance testing of our athletes because they're in contact kinds of situations when they practice. And then we ask anyone coming on campus, as you know,
Yes.
to do an annual health monitoring. This is just a symptom check, but it's also, it documents it so that everybody knows that at least at this time of day, you were feeling fine. And that's when you come on campus. Then we add to that the requirement of social distancing, which we are doing, and masking, which we are not because we are in a special situation.
Yes.
But for the most part, I think the compliance with those regulations on campus has been excellent. And I think those have been major factors in keeping our numbers low and continuing to lower even more.
Very good, very good. And it's just really heartwarming to look and see. For instance, this week was 6. That was the total. And that's wonderful for for the university. Let's talk about virtual classes. How's that working for us? This is going to be our 3rd semester to use that principle.
I think we learned a lot about how to conduct a virtual discussion, virtual interactions, virtual engagements, and I think faculty and students were already had a leg up on this because at Eastern we've always done online, or distance learning for a long time. So we already had the tools and we already had the experience. So what we needed to do is expand it because of course we were completely online when we initially went when the pandemic broke out. Now we have about 90 classes that are meeting face-to-face, but students always have the opportunity to attend online if they feel safer doing that, or they can attend in person, masked and socially distanced in a specially sanitized classroom that is carefully monitored for all of those CDC protocols. I think the faculty have really been the key here. You can teach online in many, many different ways. But if you don't engage students, it really doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're teaching. You have to make sure that they are with you, and that's when learning occurs. And I think that's what we have learned so much about, and they are so dedicated to enhancing those techniques and finding new ways to reach students, and the student organizations have done this too. They've reached out virtually, and so it's not just a virtual teaching platform, it's a virtual social platform that connects all of us to each other and to the campus. And I think that's the other key, that you don't just isolate learning, excuse me, you embed it in a community. And I think that has helped us a lot over these last, 3 semesters. You're right.
Yes. It's been 3. Yeah. Well, I have a friend on Facebook who is a professor here, and he he works pretty hard to encourage all of his friends to remember to wear that mask and keep those hands clean,
Yes.
all of those kinds of things.
Oh,
And I think that's good for the community.
it is. And, the basics are still right. They're absolutely right. And, every time someone repeats it, you remember, this is what is keeping you safe. This is
Yeah.
going to keep you well. So, and then we'll get the vaccines, and then we'll really be ready to rock and roll.
At my age, I put a lot of lotion on my hands in addition to the stuff that.
That's excellent. Doing dishes is a wonderful way of washing your hands. So,
Very good. I hadn't thought about that.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk for a minute about the legislature. Now, as the president, it's your job to work with the legislature. And are you having a chance to go to Santa Fe at this time?
Virtually.
Virtually.
Everything is virtual.
Oh,
We have
that's
the
too bad.
opportunity, though, to attend committee meetings, to testify at committee meetings, to participate with various legislators or committee chairs who want to reach out to higher education. They have done everything they can to make the Capitol as user-friendly and accessible, but it is not the same, and the legislators are the first to say it. We were just on a Zoom. I think that's a verb now, isn't it?
Yes.
We were okay.
Yes,
we were on a Zoom with our area legislators for the Curry and Roosevelt County chambers, and every one of them said, "It's so good to see your faces. It's so good to hear your voices. It's so good to hear someone from home." And but they always say, "Call, text, write an email. We will get back to you. We are looking for your feedback." So that's been wonderful. They've been very, very supportive.
And the legislators themselves have not been able to gather in big groups.
They have not yet. I understand that they still aspire to do that, but so far I don't believe even the full sessions have been in person. So they will be in the Capitol in their own offices. Some will be on the floor, but they will not be meeting as a body. The caucuses are meeting, but I don't think even the entire membership of the caucuses are meeting, so very limited.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm very proud that we do have some students here working with us, and we're teaching it's digital broadcasting.
Yes.
And it really helps in this particular situation. The
It
world
definitely
needed us.
does. It definitely does. Well, I think I'm so glad you mentioned technology, because if there is a silver lining to the pandemic, I think it is technology. We have all seen the marvelous potential of technology, not just in broadcast production, which of course has always been important, but in the arts. And I'll just mention one example of this. You probably know about the radio opera that the music department will be putting on this spring. And I mean, this is a wonderful Beauty and the Beast. So it's going to be a very popular opera. It's going to be broadcast by KENW during the opera segment, when we usually do the Metropolitan Opera, but it will be our students doing opera. And then there will be some filming of the making of the opera, which will also be broadcast at a later time. So if we didn't have a pandemic, I wonder if we would have thought of all these creative ways to express the arts in new and fresh ways that engage people who are limited about coming out and attending performances. So.
Great. It takes us back when we first signed the station on 46 years ago. We were doing Boston Pops. And after a while, we lost that ability as production people. And this is forcing us back into setting up all those mics for an orchestra, doing all those different things, and keeping us busy in variety entertainment instead of just drama. And drama's great. It's wonderful. I'm glad we've got a film program here.
Yes.
Actually, it's I call it digital picture program, but because film is, no, anyway. But I'm glad we've got that here, and some of these students that are helping us today are involved with that, and that's wonderful. So we are taking advantage of the problem
Yes,
uh, to learn new
good way of
things.
putting it.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're taking advantage of the problem. Now, you mentioned students. Athletes
Mhm.
are that's a big problem nationwide for colleges.
Yes.
What are we doing for our athletes here at Eastern to try to help them stay in shape, for one thing? You can't be a guy that runs up and down a floor all night long and just sit and watch a monitor
True.
for 6 months
That
without
is
moving.
that is
You
very
can't
true.
do that.
Although I imagine some students might give you an argument on that, but um,
Yeah.
the faculty have worked very hard, but no one has worked harder than our coaches at connecting with students, uh, keeping them in condition and in the right mindset to continue to practice and continue to be ready for competition. So they are able to meet in small groups, pods of 5. This is approved by the governor, and we are hoping that if our positivity rate continues to drop, we will be able to move to fuller practices, and we hope by the end of the spring, some competition. So we're surrounded by states that are competing, but we are also a lot healthier than the states that we are surrounded, at least in some instances. So I think our athletes are really showing a lot of maturity and staying up with their conditioning and their training and in following all of the guidelines that we give them, hand washing, distancing, masking. So they've been great, and the coaches have been absolutely fantastic. But of course, we all want to get back to competition. We're all looking forward to that.
You bet. Plus the wonderful education they're getting at the
Absolutely.
same time.
Yes.
And that's
we,
very
we
important.
often say that the best supported students on campus are athletes. And I think that is true because coaches are on them all the time, but they have each other. And it's a wonderful opportunity. I know so many students are missing each other. Well, the athletes have their teammates, and that is a huge support and I think incentive to stay with your program and to stay with your academic program too.
Have any of them complained about, uh, it takes 11 people on each side to play football with only 5 to practice? It's got to be really
Our students never complain.
Oh,
never
okay.
complain.
Well, that's good.
They make it work, and the coaches do too. But you're right. It's a creative activity to figure out a way to practice a team of 11 when you can only do it in pods of 5. So it's even hard with basketball. It's hard.
Yeah. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I can just imagine what that must be like. Roosevelt Hall is going to be redone, reworked. Has that started yet? Have we begun work on that?
Well, yes, in the most significant way, it has planning.
Okay.
Certainly that was a high point of fall, the passage of the GO bond and the funding from the voters of New Mexico for the renovation of Roosevelt Science Center. So right now, the users group, which includes faculty and various people who are involved in the business end of building buildings and renovating them, are meeting regularly to go over the blueprints with the architect and with the general contractor to make the final plans before they begin construction. Now, it's beautiful today, but we never know when the snow is going to fly, so we probably won't break ground until a little later in maybe late spring or early summer. But we'll be ready to go. We'll have materials here. We'll have the construction site set up, and we'll have a plan in place for how the construction will go, because we'll be using some of the building while we renovate another part of it. And then we'll be moving people into the renovated area and then fixing the other side. So it's a very creative plan that the architects have put together. We think it will, well, let's just say it will inconvenience very few people if we can do it the way they would like.
Yeah.
So,
And what's happening to us now in this country and around the world teaches us that we really need young people
Yes.
who are interested in science and willing to learn science. We need those students, and we need a place for them to learn.
We certainly do. And Eastern has been very fortunate to attract an increasing number of students in the STEM fields. And we do have a science building, but this building is the faculty research, and some classrooms are in here. There'll be some areas for students to study and meet. There are the museums that you know, the Gennaro Natural History Museum, of course, is in Roosevelt Hall, the Miles Mineral Museum. So there are lots of kind of legacy collections and programs in that building. And we're just very excited to be able to bring it back to a state-of-the-art facility that will really enhance students' educational opportunities and faculty and student research opportunities too.
Yeah, I'm always very proud of what we have accomplished. I've been here a long time, and I know people in different fields. And I have a nephew who's a doctor, and he's wonderful. And he learned right here. He got ready for medical school right here on this campus. And you talk about teams. The science people they get together and work together, 4 or 5 of them at a time, on their classes and things. And so they're doing that too. And it's just important for you and I think, to remind people that we need this institution right here. It needs to operate. And we do need that. On that line, when do you think, since you work with this so much more than all the rest of us, when do you think we're going to get out of locking people away in little groups and finally make it back to
Well, we've been
work?
speaking with the Secretary of Higher Education, who has a direct pipeline to the governor, and we're all very optimistic about completely reopen for fall. The signs are all in place. We have all of the protocols well in hand, and we've been approved with every one of our reopening or partial reopening plans. We'll do another for fall, and I think it will be completely approved. But a lot of this hinges on the vaccine, and it hinges on the governor's coding of the counties. But we're almost at yellow now, not far to go to green, and I think if we can maintain that and show that we have a plan in place, I think we will be encouraged, not just allowed, but encouraged to reopen. So I certainly look forward to that. We'd love to have the students back, and the faculty would like to come back. The staff are just clawing at us to come back. So I think, you know, there's plenty of energy for coming back to campus.
Yeah, very, very much so. I've talked with you about this before. I just hate walking out on that campus and not seeing any students.
I know.
It's such a beautiful place, all of these buildings that we have here.
Well, Don, you need to go over to the Greyhound Arena because it's very noisy over there.
I bet it
they're,
is.
They're running up and down, and they're yelling, and it feels like a campus. And so it's nice. You need to go there. You'll feel better.
That's good. I saw the cars that this semester are being parked out there, and those are some of those athletes we were talking about.
It's a huge facility, and we can spread them all out, and there's lots of room, and we have the stadium, so there are lots of places for them to practice outside and inside, and so it's a wonderful facility, and we'd like to get students back and using it.
When do you think we're going to have enough broadband in the state of New Mexico? We have discovered that's a problem, haven't we?
Excellent question. As we were speaking earlier, there's a bill in the legislature to allocate some money to do long-term planning for much more extensive broadband, let's just say from the desert to the sea. I mean, the entire span of the state, not just the corridor. And it's going to take a lot of work, but I think there's a real commitment now in the legislature to do something about broadband, especially for K-12, but especially for the remote rural areas that have been underserved and overlooked for so long. Now, higher ed, I think, has done a very good job about some creative ways of, turning that Wi-Fi out to the parking lot so you can
Yeah.
look. But
Yeah.
that's not enough. Students K-12 really need much better broadband support. And I think we're so much closer now with real appropriation, real planning, and a real commitment from the state of New Mexico to make a difference for all of our citizens, but especially our children that are trying to get their education that way.
Yes. This is too big a question to ask you right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. The children have suffered most, I think,
Yes, I think so.
in this whole pandemic, and I hear from my friends who are teachers, principals at the public schools that sometimes there's up to 60% that are failing. What when that group gets college age, what are we going to do?
Well, we are talking about that. We're talking about the kind of culture shock of moving so suddenly to online instruction and then back out of it. And we're going to look very closely at how we can help that freshman class when they come and find those little gaps or those little places where they thought they had enough, but they just need reminders or help. And nobody's going to be put in remedial classes. We're going to find where they are, meet them, and bring them up to where they need to be. I know teachers are trying to do that. They're desperately trying to do that, but they can't do it all, and we're just going to have to pick it up when they come to us. I think students are going to be more than ready to do that. I think they've been waiting for us to find a way to give them the tools to catch up, and some won't have any problems at all. But those who do, we'll be ready for them. We'll meet them right where they are, we'll bring them right where they need to be, and then we'll go on.
How do our students who've been involved with the virtual graduation, how do they feel, and what kind of reaction do you get from them?
Our students are some of the most gracious and polite people I've ever met, certainly more polite than California, where I started my education career. But, well, of course, they are grateful for the virtual. And they think it's, wonderful that there's some effort to recognize their accomplishment. But they would love to do it in person, of course. So would we. So I know that's a big disappointment to go all the way through, not just your entire high school, but then in college, and then maybe not have that opportunity to celebrate that with your family and your best friends. I mean, that's tough.
I feel bad for them. On the other hand, I have watched both of the graduations, and y'all do a great job. I mean, it looks pretty.
It does.
It's
Thank you,
very nice.
KENW. We could not do this without KENW. And the students have been wonderful. Our speakers are great. And, but just having them here, it reminds you how happy they are when they graduate and put on that cap and gown. And they're illuminated. And we want everyone to have that. We want everyone to have that experience and
Very good.
celebration.
Well, I want to wish you good luck going through the legislature process.
Thank you.
It's got to be.
I've learned a lot.
I'm sure you have, and also I hope that we keep expanding. I think Roosevelt Hall is a wonderful example of what needs to be done for education, and obviously we, the United States, we, the state of New Mexico, we, Roosevelt County, need well-educated young people.
We do.
Thank you for helping with that.
My pleasure.